Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Game Dev Tutorials. Today I want to add a single image button. Well, we're going to buttons because, you'll be able to add as many as you want, but today I'm going to add one. To do that, we're going to add a hover function to Basic2d. The reason for that is that you will want to test hovering for all kinds of things, not just on buttons. So we're going to add it at the very base level. There are many types of hover. We are going to add the most basic kind, which is basically just testing if it's hovering over the image at all. Now, this is not a very accurate hover, as in any clear space or alpha'd space will still hover, but this is a very cheap hover. It's something you would test for before you test for something more complicated like a pixel hover or a triangle hover or any other kind of hover you can think of doing. Anyway, just so you guys know, very simple version. It'll work great for buttons because buttons take up most, if not all, of the space of your image typically. So that means it works great for this purpose. And then you can always add a different kind of hover later. Okay, so then we're going to add the Button2d class, which will inherit from our Basic2d class. And then we will add a button to the UI class, and we'll display it after a loss. And then I wanted to quickly mention that there is an updated shader in this one. All it is I added this little bit right here. That's it. Just that little bit. And that grabs the color from here. And that color is passed in here in your sprite batch draw string, or in the sprite batch draw as well, not just string. Boy, I can't talk today. All right, and then so that's our goals for today. All right, so jumping right in, we have our hover to add to our Basic2d, which of course is not up there. Let's find it. Should be in the engine, Basic2d. There we go. Okay, let's pen that one for now. And then, okay, so we have public virtual void hover. That one's going to take in offset as well as just about everything else. And then we're also going to have, because this is one type of hover, we're going to have the second type there. These are actually bools. So fix that. Bools. I haven't put the S on it because I was thinking that way. Alright, and then here we're going to return hover image. It's super simple for now, but in here you would have some kind of logic to denote which hover you're trying to do, and then you would set the type of hover based on the attributes of the image that you're hovering over. So for instance, if you're trying to hover over a building, it might be important to do a pixel hover, but if you're hovering over a button, you probably don't want to waste the extra resources because it's substantially heavier to do a pixel hover, and the load time is larger because you have to load in the pixel by pixel data in order to hover over it. But anyway, this would be a switch later, or an if statement, or any kind of logic that you need in order to switch those around. And then in here, it's pretty simple. So the first thing we do is we're going to get our mouse position, and I'm going to set it to a different vector too because it's just a shorter name and it's a lot less typing. So first things first, vector 2, mouse pose, MOUSE equals new vector 2, and then we have globals.mouse.new mouse pose.x. There we go. And we'll copy paste that, switch it to Y, and we have our mouse position. Okay, why do we do it that way? Because this is 8 characters, and this is God knows how many, right? And it's just easier to read. All right, and then so our if statement, we'll fill it in a second. Return false. And then if it is correct, then we're going to return true, right? So that's simple. All right, so what is this denotation of hovering. We need to be greater than the left side, but less than the right side. We need to be greater or equal to, greater than equal to, less than equal to. We need to be less than the top, greater than the top side or less than the bottom side. So that's what we're going to do. So our mouse position dot x is greater than or equal to pose dot x plus offset dot x. Okay, that's important. Otherwise, you're not going to count for screen scrolling. Is less than minus. Oh, I typed it right. Look at there. Over the dems x over 2. Why? Because we're already in the middle, so we need to get to the left side. The left side is position minus dems x over 2. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here. So we can just copy paste it. And it is less than or equal to plus dems. That was easy. We're going to copy this whole thing, because that's all of our x's. And we're going to say and y, is that correct? Yes, it's all correct. Good. Okay, y. We just reduced our typing substantially. All we had to do is switch out our x's for y's. And we now have a hover image function. This is super helpful. You will use this, or at least I use this for, I don't know. I probably use this 400 or 500 times in my games. So, super helpful function. It's yours. Enjoy. We will edit this and upgrade it eventually for things like zoom, things like allowing the origin to be different and still being able to hover. Right now, this only hovers for the center, stuff like that. But this is the simplest form. I want to get it out to you guys so that you guys have something to work with. I've just given you ideas that you can use to edit it, but there it is. Hover image. Yay! All right, and then this is this is a mistake. It's a function, right? Whoops. All right. There's our hovers. Now, what we're going to do is the closest thing we have to Basic2d is attackable object. We're going to copy that. We are going to go right here. We're going to add Basic2d folder. So these are all things. Whoops. These are all things that are children of Basic2d that are in our engine. So let's see. Paste. Okay, and then we're going to rename it Button2d. Call it whatever you want. That's what I call it. So, yay. We're going to come in here. We're going to get rid of all this stuff. Get rid of the owner. Get rid of all this. Get rid of this. Get rid. Ooh, we don't need any of that. And we'll leave that for now. Okay. Button2d. What is our Button2d? Right? That's the big question. That's what we're trying to make today. That is the whole important lesson, right? A button is a lot of things. In fact, it's maybe the most complicated class that we have, and we will have in the whole program when this is done, because it includes a delegate. And I'll explain why. It includes a text element. It includes an object to pass information in. It includes all the things that Basic2d does. So it includes a lot of things. Hold on, let me grab a drink. Okay. So it includes a lot of the things that we've been adding up to this point, which is why I've waited quite so long to do this. I could have done it a couple ago, but you know, it's just didn't. But I want to do some UI stuff like menus and whatnot, like a main menu. Hopefully, maybe next, if not the one after the next one. So I wanted to get to this. Okay, so I managed to record the wrong screen for about 27 minutes of recording. And so I've rewinded, I think, everything back to where it was when I left off. I did the recording yesterday. I went to edit it today, and man, bummer, right? So I stopped what I'm doing, middle of the work day, and I'm getting this shot for you guys because I feel real bad about not getting 2 out last week. So anyway, I'm gonna reshoot this. So forgive me if everything sounds a little different. Maybe the mic's in a slightly different place. Yada yada yada. I apologize. I'm gonna do the very best I can to duplicate what I did last night for you guys right here. So far as I can figure out from the other videos, we were at this stage here, which was just getting the button 2D in, and then we were going to talk about the different parameters and variables. So let's start with our variables, and then we're going to have public bool is pressed, and this will tell us if you're literally trying to click on it right now. Is hovered will tell us if you're hovering over it. Remember, we just put in that hover function. We have public string text, and then I should segue for a second here. But the text is so that you can write different words over the button. And so if we come here, this is the button. It'll be provided. I guess I should add it now, as opposed to forgetting later. Into probably miscellaneous is good. There we go. And then content copy of newer. So this is obviously a textless button, right? You could choose to write your text on your buttons and then have a different asset for every different button. Originally, that's what I was doing. The text tends to look prettier this way, and it gives your artists kind of some more freedom. But it also requires a ton more art. And then I found myself, because I'm a tiny little indie the way I am, just running into bottlenecks where I was waiting for buttons, and that just felt horrible. So I moved away from that and went more towards this text on a generic button style, because it saves so much time. That's kind of my take on that, and that's why I'm going to say what it is. But notice, just a super simple button. It's just white with a gray border. There we go. That's a better look at it. Very simple, but that'll serve our purposes for now. Okay, so we got that. We have we need a hover color. So color, hover color. Now you could have a text color, you could have a pressed color, you could have lots of different things. But for the purpose of this tutorial, since I'm trying to keep it simple, and because I already do know this is going to take probably 27 more minutes, I don't want to go into a million different variables. But public, we need a sprite font for our text. Let's call it font. We need a object to hold any information we want to pass out of the button when it's clicked on. We'll call that info. Semicolon will be great. And then pass object button clicked. And this will be our delegate for passing things out. This is how things are done in web stuff, and that is kind of where I got my start in programming professionally. So when I designed these things, many of my classes, I designed them as the way I was used to them being in web programming. So you click on a button, it launches a function, yada yada yada. So that's the way I made this. And then info, so this is, you want to be able to pass info from a button click. This is not something I originally did. This is something that years later, after writing my first button class, I finally started using this, and it simplified my code tremendously. It's such a simple thing. It's like one of those, like, how did I not do that the first time things? But I didn't. And then you get used to not doing it, and then you're like, well, I don't see anything wrong with it. Well, this is one of those things that when I made the change, my code got much cleaner, much less spaghetti-er, or spaghetti-y for that matter. But we're not even going to use this today, but I didn't want to even give you a button class that didn't have it. You can pass whatever you want in here, and it will come out in the button click. Or you can pass nothing. You can pass null. So, and that's actually what we're going to do today. But you'll see later, I guarantee you at some point in this project, I will be using that. And then you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Or you'll be like, well, that's easy. And yeah, well, but it doesn't mean you don't miss it sometimes. So we need a font path to get our font. We need a text string to get the text that goes on the bottom, on the button, I mean. There we go. We need a pass object, button clicked, there we go, and object info. Okay, now just assign these variables because, you know, that's important. Text equals text, button clicked equals button clicked. Let's see. We want to error check our sprite font because we want to be able to pass in no font as so this button can handle non-fonted images. So images that you put the font in, bake it right into the pixels rather than us writing over the top of it. That's important because you want to have a class that is as powerful as possible. And again, I don't want to give you a class that can't handle that. That doesn't seem right to me. Oh man, I can't talk, can't think. So globals.content.load, and it's a sprite font. There we go. And we have, oh, nope, just font path. Okay, so this is saying, hey, if the string for font path is blank, then we don't need to load a font. Cool. That makes sense, right? Because we're not going to be doing anything with it. And so why try to load something or force you to pass in something that's valid when we could just quickly skip over it and it's not it'll save you time. It's helpful. Okay, is pressed equals false, and then hover color. So I'm going to use this kind of weird color. It's a light blue, but I've been using it for a long time, and I figured I'd pass it along to you guys. It's just one that I found that works with just, boy, I can't even spell false. Okay, it's just a color that works with just about any image for a button that you can come up with. I don't necessarily know why this one is stuck so well. I think I've only ever had to change it once, and that's because my button was really, really blue. And it almost matched. Well, it wasn't really, really blue. It was this light blue, and it almost matched it, and then it wasn't changing much. And that was the only time I had to override this. Color. Wow, that is special. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so fixed those. Now, when you're doing the update, we have three major things that are happening. Okay. We need to know when it's hovering over it. We need to know when the left click goes down, and we need to know when the left click comes up. Those are our three things. So essentially, it's the is hovered, is pressed, and fire the button. Those are our three pieces. All of them need to know about hovering. So let's start with that. So we just wrote this wonderful function over in Basic2d. We inherited Basic2d. Or Basic2d, I'm sorry. Over in Basic2d, we inherited Basic2d. And so we can just use it. Awesome. So we have hover. So all of these things need to know if they're hovered. Now, we also need to know when it's not hovering, so we can say is hovered equals false. So that's a thing. Now, our other three things were if globals.mouse. Sorry, other two things, because one of them is hovered. So we can just say is hovered equals true. equals true. Globals dot mouse dot left click, right? Now, I guess I should put this up here. So if we're in here, we also want is hovered false, just because we don't want it to be confusing about which state we're in. Is pressed is the new state that we're dealing with. Okay. You could also, instead of using two bools, you could use an int and then just cover states. I find this is a little easier to read when you're going back through it. So I use two bools rather than an int that has a 0, 1, and 2 state. But up to you, whatever you feel is better. I wanted to mention it so that you guys know. We have this one here. This is we're gonna deal with left click release, right? And that is going to run our function. So we'll deal with that in a minute. So we have state 1, which is just hovering. We have state 2. We have state 3. Okay. Now we need to deal with some of the resetting. We will have a reset function in a minute, but this is just resetting parts of things in order to get. And we reset hover here, so we're going to do the other one, which is pressed. So not globals dot mouse dot left click, and not globals dot mouse dot hold, right? So we're not clicking or holding, so we need to get off of is pressed. So is pressed equals false, right? And then you could ask, well, couldn't we just do that when it's not hovered too? We absolutely could. Sure, why not? Because, well, no, actually that's not true. That's not true. Because you could hover over it while clicking, and your is pressed is correct. You can move the mouse off of it. You still want it to be the pressed image, and then you can move it back on and release it, and you probably still want your button to fire. So those are circumstances. We want to keep the pressed there. Okay. Cool. That's good. All right. That will deal with resetting some of that. I mentioned we're going to have a reset function. So public virtual void reset. And then that's just is pressed equals false, and is hovered equals false. Very simple. Why do we need a reset? Well, as your buttons get ever more complicated, remember this is a very simple button. As your buttons get more complicated, you're probably going to reset more and more things. At least that, in my experience, it is good to have something like that. All right, we need a function to run our button click. So public virtual void, run btn click. And then we are going to error check here. So if button clicked not equal null, button clicked info. So we're passing the info in, and then after this happens, no matter what, we are resetting. So why are we error checking this, right? You could say, well, that should always be set. Well, because if you choose to do something another way, I don't want you to be forced to pass in something that gets called that's blank. That's dumb. So you could just pass in a null up here, and it will ignore it. So you'll have to figure out what you want to do with the button other than that, but I'll leave that up to you. So here we want run button click. Awesome. Now down here in draw, we have to figure out what color we want the button to be highlighting. So create a temp color, and we're going to set it to white to start with. Color.white. Perfect. And then we'll take temp color, right, and we'll stick it right here. Okay. Yeah. So we want to first check if pressed, because that's the primary one. So we want to do it first. If pressed, temp color equals color dot gray, and it wouldn't be color dot gray if you decided to create your own temp color. So just mentioning that. Then else if, because if it's pressed, we don't want to run the hover color. But other than that, if it's hovered, we want to run the hover color. So temp color equals hover color. Cool. Now we've set our temp color. Awesome. Now down below, so this is going to draw our art, right? Because that's going to go back to Basic2d, and it's going to run this here, right? And then we want to draw the text on top of it. So we want to be below it. And then we are going to say it's in UI. Let me just copy paste it. Let's make life easier for ourselves here. We want a string set up. So let's do that. Instead of temp string, we have text. Temp string text. String dims. Alright, so where are we? We are at the position of the button plus offset plus negative string dims x over 2 negative string dims dot y over 2. Okay? This should take care of this. Notice this black. This is the reason that I needed to fix the shader. So that black will now be absorbed properly, and so fonts can get their colors correctly. That's why I did what I did there. Okay, this is our button class. It should work. Ooh, almost knocked stuff over on my desk. And then now we need to go into UI to work on that. Okay, so this UI class, we need to add our button. Our button is we should add it up here. Oh, you know what? I didn't reset this part. I'm sorry. Public Basic2d reset button. I apologize. That I would have typed it, but it's already there. All right, so reset button equals new Basic2d, and then in here we're going to put all of our parameters to make all of this work. So let's start with our image, which is 2D misc simple button, new vector 2. These are zeros because we want to be able to move it wherever we want to. New vector 2. Our button is 96 by 32, so we're just going to use the full size for right now. It should stretch just fine, by the way. So if you guys plan on using this button just as your own temp art for your own applications, you should be able to stretch it. There's no diagonal edges or anything. It should stretch and actually be correct. But that's the actual size, so we're going to use that for now. We are going to use the font right here for our font to load. Could you just pass in that font? You absolutely could. But if you want these to be separate, then you have to make them separate. So, you actually can't pass in the font, I'm sorry, because it's a font string. But you could set the font. You could leave that null and then set the font below if you chose to. It's up to you. We're going to say reset. That's the text we want on the button. We need our button click. We don't have that yet. And like I said, we're just going to do a null here. To get the function that we want to call, we have a reset function. It is somewhere in here. Reset world is what it should be called. Oh, you know what? It's right here. We passed it in here. Reset world right there. I'm gonna put this in. It'll be a little bit upset at me for a minute, but let's just pass object reset, and then now those are lined up, and then reset goes here. Okay, so that deals with that. I'm getting some stuffs. I put that in the wrong spot. That's why. A little flustered trying to get this all out for you guys. Okay, let's see. Now we're gonna do the draw portion first, and then we'll come up and do the update portion next. So this is very simple. We want this to draw right below this, right? So directly below that is just adding some Y to it. So let's start with reset button dot draw, and then it wants a location. So we're just going to take this, paste it in here. Now we don't want the offset from the Y of the center of the screen, because that is what moves the text over so it draws correctly. We don't want that. Instead, what we want is just to add like 100 or something. I mean, pick your number, it doesn't matter. That will now draw it directly below our text. Now our text still says press enter to restart. We could say press enter or click the button to restart. I mean, you don't need to add that, but you know, fine. Now let's take this whole thing, and then we'll delete stuff from it and change it to update, because we need to be in the same state, and that state is in that if statement. So we don't need all this. We'll get rid of that, and then we got to change this to update. Okay. This should be a working program at this point. So let's run it. All right. Build it. Here we go. I gotta die. 5 hits, if I remember right. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oh, breakpoint. Let's get rid of that. Alright, let's check our hover on our button. That side's good. That side's good. That side's good. That side's good. Obviously, the middle's going to be good. So there's our hover color. There's our pressed cover. If I release over here, it shouldn't do anything. And if I do that, it should. And it works. Alright, so that is the end of our tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this is helpful to you guys in creating buttons and UIs and whatnot. If you enjoyed the tutorial, please push that like button. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe if you like the content so that you can see more. If you really want to see stuff as it comes out, make sure you hit that notification bell, because otherwise you're not going to get a notification when I put out new content. And consider Patreon, because there's a lot I'd like to do that I simply financially cannot afford to do with this channel right now. Like I said before, any of the assets that I pay for with money from Patreon, which I will spend all of the money on the channel, will be given to you guys. I'm not going to be trying to keep them from you. I'm not trying to, create something all off of you guys' money or anything. I'll be giving them out. You guys can have them. Past that, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys next video. I am trying to get another one out this week, so have a good one.